Hello Enid, I'm Derrick Silas, the Director of Communications for the City of Enid, and today we'll have a city update with the City Manager Jerald Gilbert. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Derrick.
All
It's
right.
good to be here with you again.
Always. Let's talk about a little of the construction that's going on in the community. We have some road closures and a lot of construction going on.
Yeah, you bet. It's always exciting to me that when we're working on streets, when we work on streets, that always requires that we have to close at least part of them, and that causes inconvenience for people. But I'm excited to remind people that at the end of that inconvenience, we have better streets. So I know we put out several press releases about streets that we're working on right now. And I think some of them, for instance, the work is ongoing on Highway 81 North, not only at the overpass now, but north of town. Mm-hmm. And I know that people that come into town from north are going to really appreciate that. There's also some concrete repairs going on and at several different locations, and I hope that people have noticed now the city has really been busy on concrete repairs around town. So almost everywhere in town, I would say probably in every ward, you would be able to see some concrete repairs that have been done. Anytime you see new concrete where there's old concrete panels, that program specifically focuses on 2 or 3 panels that are bad or buckled or cracked up. And so it doesn't fix the whole street, but it makes an improvement, particularly on a street that's relatively good except for those portions. Mm-hmm. I do know that we've got some more work coming. I think maybe there's been a press release out on Randolph. Mm-hmm. There's work coming to move a water line on Randolph from 26th to 30th, and then that street's going to be fixed. So when we fix streets, we got to get the right-of-way and the easements while we're doing the design. Then we move the water line because we don't want it under the street. Mm-hmm. For obvious reasons, then we fix the street. So it's a long time-consuming process. I appreciate people bearing with us. We're really trying to focus on streets in town. There's some more streets coming in the near future. Maple Street downtown between the 2 big buildings. The water line's being moved there so that portion of street can be fixed. And I know there's another street over by, I believe it's Park or Oklahoma, over by the Stride Bank Center that's being fixed between the parking lots. So more to come, and so we're excited about that. I realize it's never enough, so we've got more coming. So for those of you that remind me that there's other streets to be done, I appreciate that. We take a look at them and try to get them on the list so we can eventually get them all fixed.
Okay, and residents can also always go on the Cclip Fix app,
Yes.
I imagine, and request street.
Absolutely, and pothole repairs is one of the biggest requests we get. We really work hard to action those quickly. I know Brian Bruce, the supervisor in the Streets and Roadway Maintenance Department, is very good about doing that and updating that. His people actually do the work, and either himself or Ashley, the foreman, updates that. So we're very responsive on that. So please, you can also call in, but our preferred method is really Cclip Fix, so hopefully a lot of the public's getting used to using that, and we appreciate that. That's one of the improvements, Derrick, that you've helped bring to us with the team on trying to automate and use digital platforms to make services better and more timely.
I know when we talk about the tree limb and debris from the natural incidents, we've gotten like over 300 or 400 Cclip Fix requests concerning that, which is good because that is a two-way communication between the city and always to the direct person who's requesting the service. When it comes to the construction, I think it's part of the focus is to anytime you're doing new construction, especially in the older areas, to go ahead and fix the water lines and remove them from streets. Is that part of the plan?
Yes, normally we want to do that because invariably even new water lines break because of the movement in the ground. When it gets real hot or real cold, the ground contracts or expands. We do still have earthquakes from time to time that impacts the water lines. And when we have to tear up a street, particularly a new street, we don't like to do that because it's difficult to get that street, that repair, and the ground packed down just right to make it a smooth ride. And anybody that rides our roads will know that because street repairs, whether with concrete or asphalt, are readily evident, and they're typically very hard to get really smooth. So we try to move those. Those do increase the time and the cost of doing things. So in certain select situations, we have to make decisions about whether we need to move it or not. But we like to move them because it keeps the street nicer so that we don't have to cut it for water line repairs in the future.
Well, we're on the subject of construction and road closures. Maybe we can educate the public a bit more about what it takes in the process of road construction. Now, is it about $1 million per mile of road or construction? Is that the cost?
Yeah, to do a street, a mile of street in concrete and with all the requirements that we have, which is typically curb and gutter now when we rebuild it with concrete, and sidewalks and ramps and domes to make it ADA accessible at all the intersections, is very costly, very costly. So it's about $1 million a mile. We're exploring ways to make improvements at a lesser cost because that allows us to make more improvements. And so therefore we've come up with our asphalt repaving program that Everett Glenn and Brian Bruce and Ashley Humphreys oversee. We're very excited about that. Those are specifically for asphalt streets that don't have curbs and gutters. With that program, we're able to do overlays and make improvements. They're not perfect or permanent fixes, but they extend the life of a street anywhere from 5 to 8 years and make it a lot nicer. An example of that is over on 17th Street on the east side of town. We've recently done some of that, and on 14th Street we're doing some of that. Okay. So I'm excited. You can also see over on Cambridge, over by Plants of Plenty, that's an area that we've done. North Grand, north of Willow, we did that probably last year. And so those are programs we're really going to try to get a lot more done now that we're in the summertime. We do have, unfortunately, we always have to keep up with the grass too. So there's a lot of mowing going on too. But we're excited about that. Our concrete program is we're using contractors and city personnel. Larry LaRue principally is our smart guy that goes out and gets the specs for those and gets them bid out. And we're getting a lot of those done because we're able to bid those out. And we appreciate the patience of the public, and hopefully you're seeing the fruits of that labor.
I know last year there was about $5.1 million spent in road construction, and a lot of people didn't realize the cost it takes for just 1 mile of new construction, how much it would cost. Do you have an idea of the estimate of what amount of construction is in the budget for next year?
I believe it's about $5.5 million. It's a little bit more than the current year. We're constantly trying to do more. So even in this uncertain upcoming fiscal year where we don't know what the full impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is on our finances, we still plan to do a little more in streets. And we're doing $600,000 plus in the concrete program alone, fixing curbs, and a similar amount, a little bit less than that in our asphalt paving program. And then the rest of that money is spent by the engineers as they design the street and then bid it out to do local streets and arterials. So I know Randolph's coming up. We just finished, I believe Broadway's about finished now, from Van Buren over to Washington, and it had already been completed from Washington to University. So I had somebody the other day, the highest compliment that I hear is not necessarily when people are trying to compliment the city, but they'll say, gosh, Broadway is nice and smooth now, and that was music to my ears. It really is, from Van Buren all the way east to University. Okay. So we're proud of that improvement.
Very good. And just letting the public know that you can go to enid.org/road projects. And I think that was just on the screen showing you the different road construction for engineering, public utilities, and public works. Okay. Give me another update on other projects, for instance, the Call Lake project. What's going on?
Yeah, Call Lake is a long-term project. We started back in about 2015. We have a little bit more to get the design done. We have hired the construction manager at risk, who is Garney Incorporated. Garney's actually going to build it. They'll hire all the subcontractors to do it. So now that they're on board with Garver, the engineer, those two are going to be working together to collaborate and make sure that the design stays within the budget. The total budget's $315 million, and the construction budget's approximately, well, it's $240 million is what we're looking for the GMP. So Tuesday night, actually, tomorrow night at council meeting, there is an amendment back before the commission for Garver for additional engineering fees that have resulted from phase 3 taking longer than we anticipated as we looked into the CMAR route. But that amount of money and all the other engineering monies and Garney's monies are included in the land acquisition. It's all rolled up into $315 million budget. So the budget stays the same, doesn't go up. I believe that we're going to be able to meet that budget. We're working very hard to do that. So the exciting thing for the public, because this has been a difficult several years as it's being designed and you hear about it, but you don't see anything, is at the end of this year we should conclude with 100% design in December, so that Garney who's going to be soliciting bids, can get busy building this next calendar year. So I don't know how early in the calendar year, but I would suspect by the first quarter or definitely the second quarter, construction will be occurring on the Call Lake pipeline. There's 8 pipeline segments. There's a water treatment plant. There's an intake system, and there's a distribution connection between the new water treatment plant and the existing service center where the water gets brought to our existing distribution lines. So we're getting ready to ready to be visible signs of the Call Lake program, and we're excited about that.
This is a how many mile?
70-mile pipeline from here to Call Lake.
And I think the one from Oklahoma City was a little farther than that when they built theirs.
Yeah, I don't recall. They're working on a much bigger pipeline, and it may be longer. We do have some experience in pipelines. In the early 80s, a 42-inch pipeline from Clio Springs was built here, which again was about 42 miles along 412. So people can actually see the vent pipes that come up in the ground in the easements there.
Okay. Now let's talk about, this is summer and people love the quality of life in Enid. Let's talk about some upcoming things. What's going on this week? Tomorrow, I think there's the opening of the pool.
Yeah, it's exciting. I know that we were uncertain for a while whether we'd be able to open the pool or not, primarily because hiring lifeguards is always a challenge, even when you don't have an unprecedented pandemic. With the pandemic on top of this, it was even a little more difficult to get people. And then we were concerned about the requirements of the sanitation and to make it a safe environment. I believe we've overcome all of those, and the pool will be open tomorrow. The hours are 11 to 12 for water walkers and aerobics. And then from 12 to 6, it's open for general admission, and people can come out and enjoy the pool. We have 11 plus lifeguards, so we feel confident we're going to be able to run the pool through late July, maybe early August. And so I'm excited we got it open. The splash pad's opened last week, and I understand they've been very busy. Mm-hmm. So something else that's notable, I think you were out at the park this weekend, yes. Maybe even driving the train. I think I saw a video. And
yeah, I was working with the Kiwanis Club there too.
Yes.
Yes.
So Kiwanis run the rides in the park, along with Karen and Scott Smith that run the concession stand and the boats.
Yes, yes.
And my understanding is all that's running.
All of it is going.
So that's
exciting. Very busy. The parking lot was full.
Good,
very
good.
Busy. Yes. Now, I know the park department has a lot of events coming up, and they have a special page on the website to note that, some of which coming up, I think, is the cardboard boat race coming up.
Yes, yes, and if you, as we advertise that, if you're interested in putting together a cardboard float, the objective of which is to see who can stay afloat the longest in the pool. It's a fun event, and we encourage you to make an entry into that. I know we have challenged our assistant city manager, Scott Morris, to work on a boat with his team, which means, Derrick, you and your team will probably be involved. So that'll be an exciting, fun time, and I think it's on, is it Saturday?
Yes, June 27th.
June 27th.
Next Saturday. So, and the registration can be found actually on the website if they go to, I want to park reservation. I want to pay for a park reservation on the website. And as you can see on the website now, on the screen, that would be the website you would go to. And coming up also, special events. Let's talk about, it's a month away, but the 4th of July celebration.
Hey, you bet. We are excited. Again, with the pandemic, it was uncertain for a long time whether we could even have the celebration on the 4th. Today is our date to notify Western Enterprises of our intentions, and our intentions are to proceed with the July 4th fireworks show. The symphony is on board to do what they do every year and set up in the pavilion on the east side of the Meadow Lake by the dam and play music that's choreographed with the fireworks. So we do encourage the public to come out. It's outside, it's in the park. You can socially distance with your lawn chairs. You can certainly wear your mask if you like. And I believe we can have a safe celebration of America's birthday and independence. And we also plan to have the fishing derby. So we may have to ensure that we emphasize social distancing on that, but we're expecting to do the fishing derby, and that's always a fun event for folks. So for the most part, we'll have most of the same activities we normally do. There may not be quite as many things that we would have planned during the day, like bouncy houses and stuff because of the pandemic, but we're excited to have the fireworks show and have people have something else wonderful to do in Enid that you can do safely in the park.
Okay, very good. Let's talk about the economy, of course, COVID has kind of put a blanket on the economy, but let's talk about what any improvements as far as economic development in Enid.
Yes, I know economic development, the city's always striving to make improvements there. We work with Enid Regional Development Alliance, who we specifically task with doing a lot of those things for us. Ricky Hayes, our retail consultant, now works directly for ERDA. And so some of the things that are going on right now is work in the district. We're very happy about the development deals that have been made between the city and the Hammer Williams Company. Just today I was talking to Ken Bradley at City Hall, and we got the site plan on some retail shops there that are in the district along Garriott between the location of the future Hideaway and the Jiffy Trip that's on the corner. I think everybody knows that the city is working with ERDA and the City Commission on a movie theater deal, and that is being worked out now with just the legal agreement. And as soon as that's ready to go, we're going to bring that back to the city. We're very excited about Apex Cinema. We just need to get that on paper, and we're meeting weekly on that with Felix Waller, who is the guy that is the developer. I'm very excited about that. That'll be a future, we think, 8 to 10 plex movie theater with potentially a trampoline park. So that's very exciting for people, for all of us.
Now, we did receive a 75% design concerning the skate park. What's the projected timeline for it being built?
You know, the timeline on that is just shocking to me. I'm so pleased with the efforts of city staff working with Spawn Ranch to move that project along. That's a project that we started talking about late last year that was really driven by the police department needing some land to put their new training center on that has a shooting simulation complex in it. And the best location we thought was where the skate park is currently, but we knew we didn't want to demolish the skate park until we had a new one. And there were a lot of folks in town, a lot of leadership on the commission, particularly Commissioner Allen and Izell. Appreciate their efforts and leadership on that, helping us figure out the new site over there on 5th and Broadway, 5th and Randolph, in that area. And we're at 75% design now. And June 30th, we should be at 100% design. And July 7th, at that council meeting, there'll be a 100% update plan with a contract ready to move forward. And that's going to cost the city roughly about $340,000, but it's a wonderful improvement. And so I know you've probably shown some of the renderings on Facebook and the internet. I think people of all ages are looking for skateboards. It's not just skateboarding, it's any kind of roller skates, whatever kind of wheeled vehicle that you'd like to take out there. It's going to be a massive improvement. And we expect the timeline has that open around the end of November, and we're on track. And so around that time then, the old skate park could be demolished and the training center could start at that time. So even though that's, you know, full scale, that's about a year from the time we started talking about it, that's light speed for the city. So appreciate everybody's efforts, city staff, Spawn Ranch, the commissioner's leadership. It's great.
Yep. When we talk about government, the government is involved with all aspects, really, when you come to the local government, community. Talking about public health, is the mayor and the city council concerned with the sudden increase of the COVID-19 positives?
I believe they are concerned. They've always been concerned as we've gone through this unprecedented pandemic, through the actions that the mayor took for emergency closures, and then the steps that we've taken as we've reopened in gradual phases. We did move through phase 2 pretty fast to match up with phase 3 with what the governor's done. And I noticed for the state as a whole, the numbers have been up, but hospitalizations have still been relatively low. I know we have a meeting at 3 o'clock with the hospital administrators and Maggie Jackson from Health. And one of the things we'll be asking about is trying to get those metrics that the commission needs to be able to make good informed decisions together so that we can reach out to them and give them that information later today or tomorrow. I am encouraged that even though the numbers, even in the city, went up, we had that one day, was it Friday, went up by 14, that we're still in good shape. It's my understanding that the 14, and I think we picked up 2 or 3 more over the weekend, that those are a result of some contact tracing, which I think is important. And we've said that's important as we go into phase 3 anyway, because if we want to be able to identify people that have it and then try to catch the people that have been around them before they have a chance to spread it to a lot more people. So I think that's evidence of they've found a few people, and they did some contact tracing and went back, it's my understanding, and we'll hear more about it today. They found some people that were asymptomatic that tested positive. So I believe all those people are isolating now, and hopefully we won't have a continued big spike.
Okay. Now, I think it was either last week or the week before when the city, along with other community leaders, had a town hall meeting. What did you take from that town hall meeting? That talked about education, natural rights and equality, and one more issue.
It was healthcare, I think.
Healthcare, yeah.
Well, what I took from it was, number one, it made me more aware of issues, and I think it made the city leaders more aware of issues. I think it made everybody that participated or that saw it very proud to be part of this community in the constructive way that the community is trying to identify these issues and actually work towards positive change to fix them. And I appreciate the leadership of Demetrius' office, who really organized that, and Lenita Norwood at the NAACP. I just can't say enough the good feedback we've seen out of it. Some of the initial efforts already are things like, I know our police procedures now, we have commissioners working with the city attorney and the police department to review police procedures to make sure that we try to root out any potential bias in those procedures and really try to model them on model procedures. And I'm sure we have some things to work on there in the future. I know something else that came up very recently and was in the newspaper was talking about LGBTQ rights in conjunction with Black Lives Matter and the whole issues of racial inequality. And I believe the Supreme Court, I just heard this morning, the Supreme Court ruled that the federal law already encompasses sexual orientation, I think the gender identity issues, I haven't read the stuff myself, but that's what Carol's telling us. So I know there were some commissioners that were considering bringing a revised ordinance to the city, and I believe they're excited now that we're really already covered under the laws that we have for those specific issues. The city supports any constructive way of trying to address these issues, whether it's protest, march, demonstrations, coming to City Hall. And then I know there's a sheriff's forum that's coming up that NAACP organized, and I think that's fantastic for everybody to come out and get educated. There's 3 sheriff candidates, and to make change, people need to understand what each candidate will bring and what their philosophy is, and vote for the one that closely mirrors what they would like to see happen, and directly really at the jail and in policing at the county level. So I'm excited about things that have come out of that. Again, I can't speak enough to the leadership in this community. The march with the leaders, all the leaders that were present, there were many commissioners there, the police chief was there, and others. So again, it's a joint effort, and it's going to take everybody. So it's not just it's all of us pulling together to recognize inequities and work to change them. So I'm very encouraged.
And it looks like the sheriff forum will be Tuesday, June the 23rd at 6 p.m. at the Stride Bank Center, Grand Ballroom, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Now, departments. We have a variety of probably approximately 30 departments for the city of Enid. Can you tell us anything new going on in any of the departments as it relates to anything in the public?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is I know that our airport director, Deirdre Gurry, is working very hard to market the airport to everybody that's interested in aviation. You don't have to be a pilot. You don't even have to want to be a pilot. You just have to like all things involved with flying. And so she's trying to do things to encourage that. One of them recently is a scavenger hunt that I think is going on now, and I believe there's information out on the airport's Facebook page, and I'm sure you probably linked it too. And so that's one of the exciting things. I know that the city is, through the Parks Department, is always working to try and come up with additional events. One of those events over at Champion Gym is an exercise class that's coming up. In fact, I think there's a connection with Ray Johnson at the Department of Health wanting to do a yoga class out there, so that's very exciting. I know the library works together with people to feed kids in the summertime out there I think they may be looking at that program this summer. So those are some of the things that are going on right now. Internally in the city, we're always looking for ways to be more efficient with the dollars we have, to be able to stretch the dollars and provide more services. So I've already talked about the asphalt program and things like that, but those are some things that come to mind. I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole lot of stuff.
Well, that's all good.
Okay.
When it comes to, we have some other issues. I mean, I guess we remind the individuals, the Enid, people, residents of Enid about court. Court has been on full swing now, hasn't it?
Yes, I believe court started back up last week, I think maybe Wednesday of last week. We would still be, some of the lessons learned from the pandemic are, if we can work with the citizens and the residents to conduct their business without coming to City Hall, we want to do that. And we want to make it, continue to make it even more easy to do that. And court's one of those items. So we're going to continue calling people. You don't have to show up at court unless you want to. You have an opportunity to make a plea, and if you want to pay a fine with that plea, you can. The main reason you need to show up at court is if you want to make a not guilty plea, and certainly you can do that, or if you just want to talk to the judge about something deferring. But even to talk to the judge, you don't have to
Capiciano.
Yeah, Camposano, our assistant city attorney, or you could reach out to the judges in between. You don't have to come to court. So court has started back up, and certainly people get citations and have the opportunity to come. But I just want to make sure we're looking for ways to make it convenient for people so they don't have to stop by.
In addition to that, I imagine they can also continue to do utility payments online as well, or by phone.
Absolutely.
Okay. The talk about tomorrow. Well, tonight is a big night. MAPC will be going on tonight. Tomorrow will be the commission study session and regular meeting. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Sure. Tonight there's several items on the MAPC agenda. There's a couple rezonings that are notable. One of them, I believe, is the school system wanting to do a rezoning, and then one of them is out west. There's a rezoning for a residential to an agricultural. There's also an ordinance, an important ordinance on there that to look at defining marijuana groweries better than we do have, and to put in place some restrictions so that you can't put groweries in a residential area. We've had a lot of concern from residents and commissioners about this, and so we can legally put restrictions in place to restrict those groweries to industrial, commercial, or agricultural areas, which more appropriately suit what that kind of business is. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be, MAPC will hear that and get a chance to make a recommendation. The City Commission will hear that on the 7th. I anticipate that'll be approved because I think it's a great idea, and it was being led by some of the commissioners. Commissioner Mason comes to mind on that one. So that's what's going on with MAPC. With tomorrow night study session, we're talking about the DCIP program in study sessions, the Defense Community Infrastructure Program. That is a potential for a multi-million-dollar grant from the federal government to the city for the Call Lake program. And we have a deadline of the 26th to turn in the initial proposal, and we'll be doing it well before then. In fact, Mike Cooper will hand carry it for us. He helped develop the legislation working with Senator Inhofe and the legislative team. So we're very hopeful that we're going to get several $1 million. In fact, I'm thinking it may be the biggest grant, in city history, although we've gotten a lot of help on the airport projects before. But we can certainly use that help on the Call Lake project, because potentially with that money, we would have to borrow less money, which is always good for the city. So we're going to be looking at that. We'll also be talking about storm damage cleanup. I know a lot of folks are frustrated that it's taken a while to get all the limbs picked up, but we got to remember there's tens, if not hundreds of tons of limbs that have already been hauled to the landfill, and we're going to get there. And so we're focused on the center of town. So there'll be some maps shown tomorrow night, particularly the Van Buren over to Cleveland, and from Chestnut down to about Garriott is roughly the area that we're working in. So we'll keep, if your limbs are out there, be patient with us. If you've already called them in or put it in Cclip Fix, we know they're there. Even if you haven't and we're on the route and we see limbs, we'll be picking them up. So just make sure they're out there. Let's see, there's a couple other things I was going to look at. Oh, the low water crossing at Meadow Lake. That's been on the previous commission meeting. Cost $458,000. It's not the best looking thing in the world, so we've stepped back to look at some other concepts. And we're going to come back and talk about some options there, and then the commission will have a chance to make a decision on that. Oh, and another thing that came out of the town hall that we had a week or two ago was a concern that Terry Mote had brought up about Marshallese issues with health and voting. Mm-hmm. And so we've asked Michael Frisbee from the election board to come up and talk to the council about specific voting issues, particularly for Marshallese folks, and there'll be more input from Carol on that. But I think that'll be an interesting conversation there too, as the commission is interested in making sure that everybody has representation and has a say in what we do here, and trying to identify the issues of inequality and change them. It's going to take everybody to do that. So that's maybe only a small effort, but it's taking a look, and that came directly out of the town hall. Yeah, so.
I think that was a very positive town hall meeting to have this effect, because that was a very heartfelt testimony that Terry Mote had about his issues, health, and what have you. Because I think he does work for the Garfield County Health Department.
I believe he does,
but doesn't have the opportunity to participate in the health. Okay, so that is the commission meeting.
That's the study session, and then on the regular session, there's the Garver Amendment, the Meadow Lake Low Water Crossing, a lot of engineering projects. But I think we've hit the highlights of what's on there.
Okay.
So it's a pretty long agenda, but a lot of it's in consent. For those out there that want to make change or want to voice and have your voice heard, you're always welcome to come to a city commission meeting. You can come in and sign in public comments, or if there's something specifically on one of the agenda items you want to talk about, you can talk about that too, and the commission will listen to you. In the public comments, that's a listening phase, so we listen and to the heartfelt concerns and then try to address them later. So feel free to come to City Hall. I've encouraged city staff, unless they have something to present, to not come to the meeting, simply to free up more space for the public. We're still trying to practice social distancing down there, so we have less seats than we normally would, but please come out. There's also a lot of board appointments. That's another way that people can make change, is the volunteer boards we have. So there's about 6 boards that there'll be appointments on, and so anybody, most boards, there's really not very many or any eligibility requirements. So if you want to serve on a board, you can fill out an application with the city clerk for a board, MAPC, Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, Fire Civil Service Commission, the Public Arts Committee. Mm-hmm. You can make a difference that way, and your voice can be heard. So please think about volunteering, and a lot of folks have volunteered, and so some of them will be voted on because we have more applicants than we have positions. So we're excited about that.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today.
You bet.
The town hall meeting really, I can't speak for other cities across the world, but I do think that in the city of Enid, there has been very positive change with all of the things you just mentioned about the town hall meeting, and we can see how impactful that was by the various things that we have on our commission meeting. Which is very good, and I think the public really appreciates these updates every week, because this is very good information to pass along to them, so they can just be kept abreast of what's going on in the community.
Absolutely. I kid Commissioner Waddell, this one's for you. He is very proactive about telling me we don't communicate what we're doing enough. So this is part of that effort to try and communicate more. Derrick, I appreciate so much what you and your team are doing. You're doing an outstanding job with your team in communicating all these things, and still we don't, I hear people, we didn't know we had this, or we didn't know we had a town hall. So we're trying to do better. I know Scott or myself will be here every week, and we're glad to answer questions. So if you have questions, you can send them to us anytime, or if you send them to Derrick and Diana, they'll queue them up for us and ask us live at these meetings. So
it takes time anyway for change, or for the word to get out, and then people get used to this program. They'll get used to what the posts on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms. It'll take a while to just educate the public of how the process works and how things are. But overall, I think the city of Enid as a whole, is working toward positive change, and I appreciate that.
Good.
For all our commissioners and city management.
I appreciate the leadership of not just the commission, but the leaders in town.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
it makes us. I think it can make us all proud that we live where we do. So.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, and you can join us again next Monday at 1:30 p.m. for another city update. Have a great day.